Yeah. Welcome to our city council meeting today. Appreciate you being here. We'll get started. We're missing Councilwoman Michelle Randall. She's asked to be excused, helping with a sick loved one tonight. So we excuse her. Otherwise, we have a full council, and we have our deputy city attorney with us, Paula Houston. Thank you, Paula, for being here today. And we would like to begin with an invocation which will be offered by Laura Fairchild with the Baha'i faith, after which I've asked Lynn Beecher to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Lynn is the president of the St. George Rotary Club. We'll talk more about them in a few minutes. Laura.
Thank you very much. I've selected a prayer on, of all things, meetings. Let us pray. O my God, verily these servants are turning to thee, supplicating thy kingdom of mercy. Verily they are attracted by thy holiness and set aglow with the fire of thy love, seeking confirmation from thy wondrous kingdom, and hoping for attainment in thy heavenly realm. Verily they long for the descent of thy bestowal, desiring illumination from the Sun of Reality. O Lord, make them radiant lamps, merciful signs, fruitful trees and shining stars. May they come forth in thy service and be connected with thee by the bonds and ties of thy love, longing for the lights of thy favor. O Lord, make them signs of guidance, standards of thine immortal kingdom, waves of the sea of thy mercy, mirrors of the light of thy majesty. Verily thou art the generous, verily thou art the merciful, verily thou art the precious, the beloved. Amen.
Thank you, Laura.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lynn, will you stay here? Might as well just, or stay close, whatever you'd like. Since we've got Lynn here, just happens to be here today. He is, as I said, the president this year of the St. George Rotary Club, and we have several other Rotarians from that club here today. And actually, I'm a member of that club. They don't always remember that I'm a member because I'm not there all the time, but they are very patient with me. Anyway, thank you for being here.
And I used to be.
You did. That's right. It's a great club, and we appreciate all that they've done. And one of the things that Rotary has done across the world is to their mission has been to eradicate polio from the earth. And how close are we to doing that, Lynn?
We, the first 2 weeks in October, no new cases anywhere in the world. We literally track this. This week, though, we had one new case in Afghanistan. But other than that, nowhere else in the world has there been a case. And we have people that literally go out to the countries that have been getting polio the most, and we vaccinate all the children as much as we can.
It is an incredible thing when you think of how debilitating this was and how it affected so many people for so many years. And in fact, what's going to happen Monday at noon?
Monday at noon, we have Anne Picot. She's French, but she's lived with polio her whole life. And she is coming to explain to us as a child how she had braces on both legs and for the last 25 some odd years been in a wheelchair dealing with this disease. And she's going to explain in detail how devastating it's been. But She has remained positive and is an amazing person. 12:15 at the Abbey Inn. Would love anybody to come.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Lynn. What I'd like to do is read a proclamation this time, Council, that Linda Sappington and others have helped prepare. So here we go. Whereas in the mid-1900s, more than 1,000 children around the world were diagnosed with polio every day. And whereas in 1985, Rotary International launched its Polio Plus program, the first initiative to tackle global polio eradication through the mass vaccination of children. And whereas Rotary International has contributed more than $1.7 billion and countless volunteer hours by more than 1 million Rotarians to immunize more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. That's astounding. Those numbers are amazing. And whereas Rotary International's advocacy efforts have played a role in decisions by donor governments to contribute more than $7.2 billion to the effort, and whereas partners such as the World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control, and UNICEF have joined the effort, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are matching 2-to-1 every Rotary dollar up to $50 million over the next 3 years. And whereas today only 3 countries in the world, as you just heard Lynn mention, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan, are still reporting cases of the wild polio virus, which is a reduction of 99.9% since the 1980s. And whereas Rotary International and its partners are this close, did you say, Linda? This close to and remain committed to finish the fight. Now, therefore, I, Jonathan T. Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, October 24th, 2018, as Polio Awareness Day in the City of St. George. So wonderful, incredible efforts and great news, Lynn, to pass along. And again, I think it's so important that we realize that we here in St. George, through our Exchange Club and others, are a part of that bigger rotary wheel, that cog that has accomplished an incredible task in a relatively short period of time. Probably back then they might not have guessed it could actually be reduced by 99.9%. So we're that close. So I would like to come and present this to you, Lynn, and then if there's anything else you or the group would like to say, be happy to have you do so. Linda's going to need us to turn that around. There we go. Sound good? Anything else you want to say?
Just one other thing, that, smallpox is the only other disease we've eradicated. We're this close to taking care of polio. And many of you probably saw polio cases when you were younger. And how many see them now? Hardly any. And that is just amazing.
Thank you. So this is a huge thing that Rotary International has done, but I certainly want you to know, everyone that's here today, that's not all that Rotary does. They do a lot of wonderful things, and this club, they go to Guatemala every year. How long have you been doing that, Lynn?
21 years, but 11 where the Rotary Club has been helping. And we go to Maya villages way up in the mountains, and we do a medical team, we do a dental team, and we do school supplies, and we build stoves. They build fires on the dirt floor and cook, and the smoke just stays in there. We build a stove with a pipe going out and literally change their lives. And I've gone the last 2 years, and it's the coolest trip I've ever done.
All paid for by these volunteer club members and donated supplies and donated time. It really is incredible. I haven't had the opportunity. I've had the opportunity. Haven't been able to go yet. One of these years I will go, as long as someone will help me. Jimmy, you might need to go speak some Spanish or something for me. Portuguese, you know. But you could still understand more than I would. Anyway, thank you to all the Rotarians for all that you do for our community and for those many miles away. Okay, let's see. We also would like to have, before we begin our written agenda today, the Bicycle Collective is here today. Judith, would you come forward? And I think what we're going to do is hear a little report. They've been in operation in their new building, which for some of you old timers is the old Trafalgar, okay, for the last 1 year, I believe. Mm-hmm. Please introduce yourself, Judith.
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor Pike. Yeah, my name is Judith Rondley. I am the location director of the St. George Bicycle Collective, and I have brought a short letter and a short report for you to say thank you on behalf of everyone that is part of the Bicycle Collective. So, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Bicycle Collective. We would like to sincerely thank you for giving us the opportunity to move into our current location on 70 West St. George Boulevard. We celebrated our grand opening almost exactly a year ago, like you just said, yeah. Since we opened our doors in October 2017, we have succeeded and grown beyond our expectations and even dreams. The St. George Bicycle Collective has become no less than a lifeline for some. We give bikes to people in need of transportation, and we help them keep their bikes running. Only a few days ago, one of our what we call Goodwill bike earners came back to the shop after riding her bike to work for over 6 months. She was overlooked and hit by a right-turning driver. Thankfully, not much had happened to her at all, except for her bike being in disrepair. With no money to fix it and the driver not having insurance, we were her only opportunity to keep her main mode of transportation running. Within no more than an hour, her bike was up and running again, and because we're a self-service bike shop and we teach people how to maintain their bikes, she even knew how to fix it. We taught her how to do it. Bikes are a powerful tool for self-reliance, for health, and for happiness. As a community that embraces cycling, you support those with less economic means, while at the same time you're attracting tourists, new residents, and businesses, and you create a healthy, clean, and safe environment for your children and for future generations. At the Bicycle Collective, volunteers and customers from all walks of life come together now to do something meaningful, to learn, and to have fun together. We see a lot of people from our growing retirement community, but we also see students, families, businesses, young professionals, sports teams, church groups, you name it. To date, more than 350 volunteers have contributed 3,500 volunteer hours, and that's just this year, of their time to the Bicycle Collective. Translated into economic value, that equates to $86,000. Local customers as well as tourists visit our shop, and the most frequent response that we get when we ask how people found us is, we drove by so many times. Our location that you donated to us is really hard to beat. And when people learn that you kindly donated the lease to the building to us, they're impressed and grateful. We share that with our customers a lot. We've been able to raise almost $60,000 through our community bike shop alone this year, making this a sustainable operation, relying on grant money and donations only for programming that goes beyond the community bike shop itself. One example, we go and meet children, families, and adults where they need us most. We've served more than 200 children with bike checkups at schools, after-school workshops, summer camps, and bike fix nights at different churches. Each time we see a huge demand for what we offer, and we have an ever-increasing list of supplies that we bring and donate to children to keep their bikes functioning. At our last Bike to School event just a couple of weeks ago, pedals made it onto that list. One child managed to ride to school with just one pedal. I have no idea how.
I've done it.
I saw it with my own eyes. It is essential for a thriving city to have places where people can get together, collaborate, and engage in meaningful opportunities. With allowing the Bicycle Collective to move into 70 West St. George Boulevard, you've given a location for much more than just a self-service bike shop. You're giving the residents of St. George and Washington County a space to come together, to actively participate, shape, and co-create our community. So we'd love to extend our thank you, and we'd like to invite you to come by and visit the St. George Bicycle Collective. We'd love to have you there, and we'd love to show you. We're celebrating our birthday next Saturday. We'll be open for a birthday sale in the morning, and then we'll celebrate with a bike ride and the barbecue in the afternoon at 4:30 p.m. You're most welcome to join us. Thank you.
That's Saturday, the 27th.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, by the way, that day is also, all of our bike share bikes are free that day.
Yeah, I heard that.
You can use those. There's a special, by the sponsors, special day that day. And then we're going to do a bike with Pike on Monday. So that's sort of a bike weekend. So come on by. It's right there on the boulevard, as Judith said. Joe, anything you'd like to say? Joe is the patron saint of the Bicycle Collective, along with many others, including Danielle Larkin, who's in the back here.
The only thing that has really triggered my mind about this is I was really a person who was pushing for that location, but I had no idea how this would all turn out. It is beyond my wildest dreams. And I just think it's great. We see young kids who are able to have transportation to school. We see older people who don't have any other transportation. But this has been such a great success, and it's because of so great people that volunteer for it, but also Judith and Danielle and their guidance on it. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is part of, everyone should know, this is part of a broader group out of Salt Lake, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we operate in conjunction with them or under their charter. I'm not sure how that works, but we take some of our cues from them. But and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you're the only paid employee. Is that correct, Judith?
We've actually grown to having now 4 paid employees.
Are they part-time?
So, yes, they
Yeah.
are part-time. I'm the only full-time employee.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, and again, all done through donations. You used to have a lot of bikes in that back room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
we have probably about 150 bikes in that back room rotating. And,
Yeah.
yep.
It's a great thing. So stop by and see it. Ed, did you have something?
I was just going to say that when that skilled bicycling park opens up, they might have more business on repairs down there. You know, that's going to be a real fun challenge.
Yes,
That's
and,
true.
And our role in that, where we see ourselves is providing bikes to kids who couldn't otherwise afford riding there, right? So we're working really hard to get bikes ready for that, and yeah, it's hard to keep them on the floor, honestly.
Judith, thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thank
Appreciate what you're doing and all those. The thing that Councilman Baca referred to, our bike park, bicycle skills park, it's going to be known as Snake Hollow. That's over near the Sand Hollow Aquatic Center in the wash there, the Sand Hollow Wash. Some of us have called that the Dean Terry Wash, but it's really the other side of the street. Anyway, it's going to be incredible. Snake Hollow, and you'll love the signage when you see it. It's not open yet, but you may not know that if you went and drove by there after school hours. And we won't say that's okay, but hey, that's okay. We love what already appears to be a very warm reception to this park that's been a long time coming, and we're pleased that can be done through RAP tax funding, as we promised. That was advertised as part of the ballot initiative that went out, and also park impact fee funds, and also county tourism funds, because there will be some visitors that will come and use this park, this bike park. In fact, I think this is kind of first phase. When there's another phase completed, I think you'll see competitive events there. Mark, does that sound right? That's a thumbs up. Yep. So anyway, it's going to be neat. And that's going to be opening on November 17th at 11 a.m. Yep. So we invite anyone that wants to come. All right. Adam, has anything changed on the agenda?
There are two changes that I would bring to your attention. First is the addendum, which we can discuss in a minute, but I do want to talk about item number 4, and that deals with a potential zone change from R110 to PDC Commercial that's located at the southwest corner of Dixie Drive and 600 West. We did advertise that as a public hearing for tonight. We expect that there may be people in attendance here who are expecting to make comment on that. That item has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. And so if it were to come back to the council, we would, and we expect that it may, but we would redo that notice for the public hearing. But I did want to make that announcement so that anybody who's here for that item would be aware of that. Other than that, I'll review the addendum when we get to the consent calendar.
Thank you. Did we post something on that as well? Just on the door or anything? Okay, that white. We didn't have a great way to notify everyone because this just happened this morning, late this morning. So we did post a notice just letting people know. But they would have to be noticed again to the public for anyone who wanted to come and offer input on that in the future. But it has been withdrawn, as the city manager said, for today. No other changes other than you see the addendum, council, which I believe all those items are on the consent calendar.
That's correct. And so we would ask that as we get to the consent calendar here that you could include those items on the addendum, those 3, so we consider all 6 at the same time. Again, those items are administrative in nature. They've been reviewed by staff and have staff's recommendation for approval.
Maybe any comments you'd make on the 2 airport hangars leases?
I did have a conversation right before the meeting began. As everyone is aware of the pending closure of the runway next year, we have made those lessees aware of the closure so that they understand, the terms of that lease, and they understand what they're signing with that. We just want people to be fully aware that it will be closed next summer for a time.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions on any of the items on the consent calendar or that you would like to pull off of the consent calendar for individual discussion? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as it has been presented.
Mayor, I just might ask if you might want to make a comment about the Habitat for Humanity that's on here, the fundraiser ball that's coming up, number B, 1B.
Right.
And it's nice for them to continue with that. I think that it's producing some very good results.
Christmas Eve party / fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity, one of our good not-for-profits in town. Thank you, Ed. I mean New Year's Eve. Sorry about that. December 31st is usually when they celebrate New Year's Eve. Yeah. Some of us, yeah.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept the consent calendar with the additional 3 items from the addendum as written.
Second.
I have a motion by Betty with a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
For item 2, our leisure services staff have recommended a change to one of the fees that we charge for, for our pickleball, tennis and pickleball. Why don't we have Shane come explain that to us?
I think Shane's going to get a little help. An assist.
I was always taught to bring somebody who's smarter and prettier than you to a meeting. So, but I'd like to introduce Nicole Pledger, who's one of our up-and-coming stars in the Recreation Department. She's a coordinator. She oversees the Thunder Junction Parks. She works in the parks itself, working on park reservations and field reservations, and has worked extensively on the fee schedule. So she'll be able to give a brief presentation and probably answer any questions you have.
So we are just trying to make it more consistent throughout the entire board for our city, and we'd like to have our tennis and our pickleball and our volleyball courts all move to $10 per hour for those that want to reserve it for like an event or a tournament. Our lights automatically come on for all of those courts, and so anyone can use them at any time. It's just if they want to kind of have it as their own, they just have to pay that fee. And to make them all consistent at the $10, pickleball is already there. Volleyball is $10 for 2 hours, so we're just moving it to 1 hour. And then tennis, we're moving from 4 to 10 just to make it consistent across the board. And then there's also the fees of our pavilion rentals. We made a change back in 2014 for them to be $50, $100, and $400 if they reserve the entire park for the full day. It wasn't recorded, so we're trying to get that up to date. And it also includes the number of people that are in the reservation as well. And then the last thing we're trying to make a change to is just the 50% of the reservation fee for any like special events that go on in our parks, which is Gila Segmiller does a lot of our weddings. And we're just trying to create a deposit so those that use it, when they like make it nice, they clean up after themselves is the best way to put it, then we can refund them that deposit back, just so we can help keep our parks nice if there's a tournament going on and or other events that are happening.
Any questions for Mikkel, council?
So it's free, like during the day, and the evenings.
It's
For
free
tennis,
unless
Even
you're
with the lights going on. Okay.
It's free. It's just if someone specifically wants to claim it as theirs and no one else can use it,
reserve it.
Okay.
reserve it. So like some youth groups will come and reserve it for courts for just their youth group to come and use, and they just get a little permit, and it would be $10 an hour.
Okay, and so if you wanted to reserve it, it's, like, for instance, a tennis court, it would be $100 per hour. So if you wanted to be there longer than an hour, it's $200.
No.
No.
The $100 is for pavilions. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So the tennis courts, the pickleball courts, and volleyball courts are just the $10. It's the pavilions with 100 people or less for
Okay.
4 hours is $50. 8 hours would be $100. The entire day, so 7 to 10 p.m., would be $400, or more than 200 people.
So 2 hours of tennis would be $20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I might just ask that we have so many active pickleball players in the community. Have you gotten any response from them? Are they aware that this is coming?
So pickleball is
all
already out there. It's
Right,
just
so-
changing tennis and volleyball. Mhm.
So, just those two.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we have costs too, and we have to update the fees sometimes, and some of them, as I understand it, just needed to be made official, but some of these are increases. So if there are no other questions or proposed changes, I'd entertain a motion to approve. This is actually an ordinance updating the fees in leisure services as have been presented to us.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the updated fee schedule by ordinance as explained.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jimmy and a second by, was that you, Ed?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Motion carries. I see a little resistance, I understand, and that's because we don't like to increase our fees. We're trying to keep things as cost-effective as we can. So, Betty, I understand.
But I think we have to keep in mind, this is going to be mostly for big events. And those events typically, especially in the case of like when you look at baseball tournaments and stuff like that, they're money makers. So usually in this case, they're going to be making money. Now, for a small youth group, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but the ability to be able to reserve it, if you ever try to go get on a court just to show up, sometimes it's hard. So it's worth it to be able to reserve it if you need to reserve it to pay the $10.
So I will say there's like a lot of people that will like call in and they'll check the courts, but we're also trying to make an online system so that people can check it online, and making the prices consistent, all $10 will help like later if we implement like paying online. but they can see, and so they don't have to reserve it if it's open. They can see online if it's open or not.
Perfect.
So
Awesome.
Okay.
Item number 3 begins the land use portion of our meeting, so we'll turn the time over to our planning staff.
Item number 3 reads, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to amend the PDR, PDC, for a master sign plan for a future Sun River Commons Commercial Center to be renamed. The property is zoned PDC and is approximately 55 acres. It's located between the I-15 freeway, Arrowhead Canyon Drive, and Sun River Parkway, also Bluegrass Road. And I'm going to go to the staff report real quick and look at page 1. This is a request to approve a master sign plan, and there are no buildings that are proposed with this application. That would require future zone change applications, like has been done out there for Hampton Inn and Terrible Herbst. This is the overall area which I'll show, and it's just for the signage. So the first item on the screen is at the bottom of page 1 staff report. And originally the applicant was asking for 60-foot pylon, 2 of them, and then project sign at 30 feet, and 9 foot for monument signs and interior signs at 5, and corner arc at 7. Going through the planning commission, working with staff, looking at the codes, that 60 is now changed, as you'll see in your staff report, that it can't go over 50. The Ekanville area doesn't allow over 50. There was nothing in the code to allow it to go over 50. And as I show you the illustrations, the signs, you'll see that that has been reduced 50. So that gives you a little background on it. And also, the quantity was originally requested for 2, and all of the review has brought it up that it's 1 only that would be permitted. So 50 foot and 1, and then the project signs.
Now, wait a second. I don't think that's correct. I think they requested 2, and I believe Planning Commission only recommended approving 1.
That's correct.
No, it's not what he said.
That's correct. So they're requesting a master sign plan, and so when they originally presented to the Planning Commission, they requested for the 2 53-foot signs. The Planning Commission had recommended 1 50-foot sign. That 50-foot sign was already permitted per the Atkinsville master plan, and so they're requesting the additional sign, which would put it at 2 53-foot signs on the property.
Yep.
Well, sorry. I'm glad we got that right.
Just want to make sure the council understands.
It came in at 50, it changed to 53, and then I thought we
Yeah.
reduced it to 50, but it sounds, and John will have more additional comments. So just a general overview. Here's the I-15 freeway, here's the Southern Parkway, and here's entering into Sun River. And right here is all of this area is where they'd like to have a master sign plan approved. That's a possibility with a planned development commercial zone. They can come in and request that. And you can see that the zoning is planned development commercial. And general plan land use is commercial and a mixed use, which has commercial component to it. And then this is a better view, just showing the outline area. It's divided by Pioneer Road. You have the Hampton Inn area and then the Terrible Herbst. This is the original request at the 60 feet. They came in. We had a lot of discussions on 50, and I do have an updated sign that will show it at 53, which is right here. And this was revised. This was September 21st. So you can see it. In reality, the bulk of the sign is all under 50 feet, but for architectural, you get a little bit of a feature that comes up here, and that was 3.7. Basically, the feeling was that that was not significant, but it needs to be addressed and looked at by council. And in your packet, this shows where all of the signs are requested to be. Here's for the Terrible Herbst 28-foot pole sign, and then a 60-foot was shown here, which is now 53, and then 60 here would be 53. And John may have to clarify it if that's 70% or not when you come up on that sign. The project sign is shown here, and then all of the interior monument signs. The monument signs are addressed to be per a building. So you might have a building with several tenants in it, and they would have that portion of a monument sign, or if you only had one tenant, it would be one person on there. But the monument signs are limited per building. This shows the original submittal. This shows, I won't dwell on this too much, this shows how Atkinville Master Plan plays in with the allowance for the 50, and then the color coding that matched that site plan to show the locations of the signage that is requested. This is a request, part of the master sign plan for the 28-foot high sign for Terrible Herps, which is a Chevron station. And then the applicant and Representative Scott McCall, who's here, has shown for discussion the lineal feet frontage of this area, and that will come up as a discussion. There's some comparisons here, for example, on the left, Target and Lowe's, so you can kind of have a feel for the signs you've seen as you've driven past there, and that's 1,600 foot. Kind of gives you the scale for the size of this commercial center. And on the floor there near council, I think it's behind Councilman Baca, is the materials board that's been submitted for this project. And I won't dwell on these, just for reference. The Atkinville land use plan comes into play, the Atkinville zoning. So I'm going to go back quickly to see if there's anything I missed in the report itself. I'm on page 2. I've got the ordinance section cited there. I won't read those, but that shows the supportive reason why they're able to come in and make this request. And you've seen master sign plans before on Smith's and Lynn's and others. They have that opportunity. The sign lighting will be addressed by the existing sign code, and according to the applicant's representative from Riesco, the signs are going to be backlit. That means it's originating internally and illuminating through the sign out, so there's no external light source shining up on the signs. The designs you've seen, and we can bring that back on the screen as required. Sign motion, the signs will not have any scrolling or motion according to Riesco, so we want to make sure we're aware of that and document it. And that is about it. I'll let John make additional comments, and then Scott.
Thank you, Ray.
So the Planning Commission, their recommendation was the 150-foot sign. They had also proposed 2 30-foot signs at each of their entrance, their full access driveways. The Planning Commission recommended a reduction to 15 feet for those 2 signs. And so those were the 2 major changes of the Planning Commission. They also recommended that each one of their monument signs be tied to a specific building. And so as they built the building, then they could have an associated monument sign up to the 14. And so that was the Planning Commission's recommendation.
I'd be curious what staff's recommendation was
Staff recommended approval.
of what was recommended
What
or
was
requested.
submitted. Yep.
Okay.
Again, the applicant originally submitted the 60-foot tall sign. Staff worked with them, reduced it down to the 53 feet. They also requested almost a 500-foot area, and they reduced that down to about 350 square feet. And so staff had worked with them prior to reviewing it with the Planning Commission.
John, as I look at, as you, Ray mentioned, some of our other similar retail projects, the Smiths, the Lynn's, most recently Rimrock, seem to have done similar types of signage plans. Is that right?
They have. We see them a lot with these larger centers. The benefit that we have is if they subdivide these in multiple pieces of property. Each one of those properties could then have their own individual sign. With doing a master sign plan, we see the entire area. There's usually a theme. Usually the quality is a little bit higher than what you'd see on individual commercial parcels. So we like doing the master sign plan for that benefit. It allows them for more sign. On the other hand, it allows a little bit higher design and material than you typically see.
I'd like to, if the applicant's interested in saying anything, I'd love to hear from the applicant. Council, do you have any questions for John or Ray before we do that, though?
I would just like to ask John, you referred to the sign lighting just in compliance to the code. Can you give us a little bit more verbalization in describing that? Are we going to have signs, for example, like State College or on River Road where they're flashing and turning and their brightness goes up and down?
No, they're not. Other than the gas station, which has the numbers, the prices that change, they're not requesting any digital signs.
Scott?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. Sun River Commons is a very large commercial area, and I thought maybe a little context on how much bigger it is than a lot of the places we're familiar with might be. For example, you could see the freeway frontage is about 2,000 feet. Red Cliffs Mall, the entire frontage is 1,200 feet. The Bloomington Walmart is 1,000 feet. So we're talking twice as much. And that's part of our thinking, our justification for the two 50-foot signs. Also, you could only see the two positions that we're showing on our plat. You could only see one from each direction. So this would spread them out quite a bit. And there's also an awful lot of tenants that are going to be on all this parcel, on this property. The entire site is about 54 acres. And another comparison is the whole Red Cliffs Mall is 38 acres. This is really a super large commercial area. And like John pointed out, if this was segmented into several different commercial areas, it would qualify for several more signs. But the intent of having a master signage plan in the first place is to have a consistent look and to ultimately reduce the signage. So we're hoping this plan kind of fits all those elements together and will hit the sweet spot.
Any questions for Scott, Council? You've seen the proposed materials and design in your packet.
Okay.
And behind here somewhere. Okay. Okay, if there are no questions, I will open the public hearing at this time for anyone who's come to offer input or ask questions about this item 3 on our agenda. And if when you come forward, just state your name for the record.
Cameron Ferguson. I live in Sun River. Mayor and councilman, ladies. We'll begin by saying the Title IX, Chapter 13 city sign ordinances provide that the, and quote, the sign requirements contained herein are declared to be the maximum allowable for the purposes set forth. The law later continues, where this chapter imposes a greater restriction upon signs and the locations thereof, or requires or imposes conditions other than those required or imposed by laws, ordinances, restrictions, the provisions of this chapter shall control. Section 11 of the sign law allows for the approval of minor variances from the standards set forth herein upon proper evidence that a variance is warranted, end quote. The key is that even in such a case, there must be compelling reasons to warrant the minor variance. Thus, the rules for variances provide the applicant has the burden of showing that the ordinance provisions will cause him an unreasonable hardship, and the alleged hardship is not self-imposed or economic. Here the applicant has chosen the location of the businesses, and any perceived adverse consequences are his and only his to bear. But he wants to have higher, larger, and more numerous signs than the law allows, just to make sure that no passing motorist could possibly miss the location of his businesses. To meet its economic interests, Sun River residents and others will be forced to bear with blight on the view in the daytime and light pollution in the nighttime. Even in the case of a planned development, the Chapter 13 sign laws clearly apply. There is simply no other way to interpret the language of this chapter, which refers to any other laws, ordinance, or restrictions, and then concludes with the words, "This chapter shall control." The plan development rules do allow for discretion in many areas, but in the case of sign law, unless there is some plan development ordinance specifying that the word control doesn't mean control, then the sign laws do control. The city's planning staff has noted the differences between the applicant's desires and what the sign ordinances permit. That was shown briefly on one of the slides up there, but it showed what the applicant is requesting, what the Atkinson development allows or PD allows, and then what ordinances allow. And what is allowed depends upon whether the location is a non-major street or a major commercial area. The area at issue is clearly a non-major street area contiguous to a very large residential development. It's not a designated major commercial area, and whether in the hopes of the applicant it may someday be, it is not now and can't be treated as though it were. So we have to go by what this slide up there showed for non-major street areas. Hypothetically, here's what I see happens. Developer number one asks for an exception for something higher, larger, denser, or otherwise different from what the regulatory allowances allow. For whatever reason, hypothetically, the city commissioners grant the request. Developer number two comes along and argues that since the city granted the request for the first developer, he's entitled to the same exception. Purportedly to be fair in view of the president, the city grants his request as well. Then the requested variation becomes the new norm. Next, developer number three appears and claims that he's entitled to something even higher, larger, or denser. Eventually, the city's developments no longer even vaguely resemble what the ordinances mandate. And here again is what I see is in the process of happening. Just because somebody else gets a variance, then the developer comes in and says, I get the variance as well. New norm. Therefore, very respectfully, and as the City Planning Commission did, you must determine which of the developer's sign requests, as noted by the city staff, are in excess of those permitted by the city's sign law, and deny those requests. It's not an issue of what's discretionary, what people might think is in the city's economic interest, where the applicant has tried to reach a compromise, or whether the applicant might lose some customers. It's an issue of following the law. Thanks.
Thank you. When we finish, I'll ask Paula if you'll comment on some of those. Other public comments?
My name is Curly Carey. I also live in Sun River. And I think that my comments are a little bit broader in that I know a lot goes into the planning and the ordinances and setting forth some type of conformity and unity in our community. And I think that that's one of the things that makes our community great. It seems like every time a major developer comes in, they always want a little bit more. They always want to take that to a different step. One of the things that I noticed tonight was that the applicant wants 2 signs where the ordinance clearly says 1 sign. Planning Commission said 1 sign, and they're still going for 2 signs. The other question that I would have is going north along Pioneer, there's another piece of property that I believe is also zoned commercial that was not shown in those red boundaries. Will they be able to do another large sign for that piece at some point in time, making it 3 signs? And I just think that we need to maintain, while we're looking at these developments, I know they're good for the city, they're good for the citizens, but are all of the variances that they're asking for in everybody's best interest rather than a sole best interest?
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mayor, Council, my name's Ray Draper. I'm with Young Electric Sign Company, but I also live close to Sun River, which is out in Bloomington. I've been in business 44 years in the sign business. I've been in business in St. George for 30 years this month. I have put up a lot of signs, some good, some bad, not necessarily all our fault. These people, they could divide those properties and have multiple 50-foot signs. They're really asking for just 2. Coming from the north, you are not able to see the one furthest on the south. Coming from the south, you will not be able to see the one to the north. So they really do need 2 signs there. We're not asking for a lot out of the ordinance, I don't believe. Not many people spend the money for the aesthetics that these people are paying. This is a very high quality sign. It's a high quality area. It's going to be a beautiful addition to the city. And if you remember, I was on the council in Bloomington when Walmart came in. Everybody hated Walmart. They'll never shop at Walmart. First week I went there, I saw 2 people that swore at me and told me I was a dirty dog for bringing them, and they're inside Walmart. It's kind of the same thing here. This is going to be a beautiful addition to the community, and I hope that you vote and let us have the 2 large signs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Stacy Brumfield. Yes, I live in Sun River. I have to agree with the Planning and Zoning Commission. They don't need 2 53-foot signs, and they approved 1 50-foot sign because there was a big deal said about that 3.7 inches. It's either a 53-foot sign or it's not, and that was from your legal lady, not her, the other one who I've seen here.
Victoria.
Yes, Victoria. And they agreed on the 50-foot. Now, the man from Yesco Signs, his signs are beautiful. I worked with Yesco when I lived in Salt Lake 100 years ago. That's not the point. The point is that we live in a beautiful community which already has a hotel that is seen from almost every single home in Sun River now. I'm shocked when I drive through at how you can see the hotel. I fully agree that Terrible's needs a sign that can be seen from the freeway because they are hidden, and we don't want them to be there and go out of business, and who knows how long it sits vacant or before someone else comes in. But 2 50-foot signs is extreme, and if you come from Bloomington towards Sun River, you can see the development clearly on the freeway. 1 sign is going to stand out as you're coming in from the north. If they want to put a sign on the south of Sun River Parkway, then put 1 down there. But 2 on the north side, I think is excessive, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission. I hope that you will vote in favor of the people. And the developer has not suggested any tenants at this point. We don't know if there's going to be 1 large plant, 1 large store, or 50 little stores. But as was said, if you make the exception on their signs now, yes, we know it's a master sign plan, and we fully expect that they will come back with changes. But if you make the exceptions tonight, you are setting another precedent, as you did with the hotel when you approved the 68-foot hotel in our neighborhood. I've noticed since then you have 5-story buildings all over town, and that is not in the zoning laws. And so you're making exceptions over and over. I understand housing is needed, but again, you're making these exceptions. Why isn't the law being changed? Why aren't the zoning laws, ordinances being changed? Not that I want you to, but I don't want to keep coming and showing my opposition to what Sun River Development wants to do. And I appreciate you listening to my comments. Thank you.
You will see many more buildings that exceed 35 feet, I can promise you. And we might, but we don't need to. It simply can be part of conditional use. And there are reasons why you could do it either way, but we're not in violation. It's simply we choose to do it a different way.
From that standpoint, it's actually better not to, because at least we have to approve each and every one of them, if that makes sense. If we change the ordinance or then those don't even have to come before us. So it actually gives us a higher level of, dang, I don't want to say it that way, a higher level of control, which not really, not really into telling people what to do with their
Oversight.
private property, but.
Any other comments?
Ryan Kane with Yesco. I've been in the business for 18 years, 5 of which were actually up on the Wasatch Front, and I just wanted to speak quickly from my experience there and working up there. But start with the code. Title 9, Chapter 13, Section 1 describes the purpose and interpretation of the sign code, and it uses this language to encourage signs which by their good design are integrated with and harmonious to the buildings and sites which they occupy, encourage sign legibility through the elimination of excessive and confusing sign displays, thus reducing driver inattention, preserve and improve the appearance of the city as a place in which to live and to work, and create an attraction to non-residents to come to visit or trade, allow each individual business to clearly identify itself and the goods and services which they offer. In 1996, Penn State University began a study with the objective of understanding design characteristics of on-premise signs from the perspective of the motorist and traffic safety. Among other things, this study resulted in a legibility chart, which gave a rule of thumb for letter legibility. That is 1 inch of vertical letter height per 30 feet of horizontal viewing distance. With that rule of thumb, we derived that viewing distances within the safe field of vision for passing motorists along the interstate are between 1,200 feet and as great as over 2,000 feet for the Sun River project, with distances as small as 500 feet outside of the safe field of vision. This gives us letter heights of optimally 40 inches and as small as 17 inches. The size of property and quantity of tenants for Sun River for the project, and in the spirit of the sign ordinance to allow each individual business to clearly identify itself, would require many signs to accomplish this objective of safety and legibility. And as Scott had mentioned, they could end up doing multiple signs, and this is where signage gets negative connotations. We see the developers who are required to put more and more signs up to identify their tenants. I have seen this happen along the Wasatch Front, and many sizes, colors, shapes, and whatnot end up making it look cluttered. I believe, and it is my opinion, that the intent of Sun River to consolidate to 2 large pylon signs that could end up being many cluttering signs is in the spirit of the code and the intent of St. George City and its vision.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and come back to you, council. First, I'd like to hear any comments from Paula or from John or regarding any questions that might have come up regarding what the ordinance does say.
Okay. Well, the gentleman that read through the city ordinance, he was referring to the sign ordinance, of course, and that is the provisions in the sign ordinance, and was also referred to the fact that they could have multiple signs at 50 feet if they chose to broke it up into individual lots. So, for example, over on Bluff Street on the corner off the freeway there, you have a lot of 50-foot signs in that area because each business has come in and obtained their sign, and they were able to have a 50-foot sign because they're within 1,500 feet of the exit or entrance of the freeway there. And they could do the same thing in Sun River if they were to come in for individual businesses asking for signs. By doing a sign plan, we can hopefully work with them to get a better design, and that's what is provided for in our PD commercial zoning, which is not part of the sign code, but it refers to the sign code. And so what that code says is that if you're not going to follow the sign code and you want to do a master plan for it, then you need to bring that in for approval. What we don't have is any spelled out guidelines on what should be included in that master plan. So there's no height regulations, there's no number regulations. We've talked about that, John and I and some of the other attorneys and staff, on maybe we should set some guidelines, but at this time our ordinance has no guidelines when they come in with a master plan on that. So we try to work with them, we try to keep it within the bounds of what they could get. We actually try to keep it reduced, which is what Sun River is doing here, over what they could get if they came in on an individual lot-by-lot basis, so that we get a better design and a better look in the end.
And Paula, if we were to approve what's been requested, then the property owners, developers would be bound by what we approve.
That's
They
correct.
couldn't come back and ask for more.
Exactly. So even if they sell off a lot to somebody else in that development, and they wanted to come in and ask for their own 50-foot sign, they're bound by this plan. So they would have to come in and ask to have that amended and see if they could get the council to agree to amend that plan.
That's the only way they could do
That would
it.
be the only way they could change it.
Helpful. Any other questions for Paula or for John, council?
I'd like to ask a question, perhaps Scott. You indicated initially that this was 54 acres, a super large commercial area.
Yeah.
And when you refer to this is a Sun River project, and just so that I can understand it and the citizens that live in that area, how much of this development that we're talking about here tonight is on the east side of the freeway? You mentioned over 2,000 feet long. How much is actually on the west side of the freeway, closer to Sun River, and how much is on the other side?
The west side, we've got 54 acres there. Now, the east side is where the Kenworth is going. We have a 17-acre parcel there, but that is not part of this application.
Right, so, but it's Sun River is working both sides of the freeway, basically.
That would be a separate application. But this is for Sun River Commons. We do have 25 extra acres, but it's not part of Sun River Commons. It's above that. That would have to be a totally separate application. So there's parcels all over, but yeah, those are separate. And, you know, I think the context is a great thing. I just keep coming back to this, but like the Best Buy Kohl's Sonic complex, that's 30 acres. That entire frontage is 16. And, you know, the Washington and Home Depot complex is 39 acres. This is 55.
It's a lot of frontage.
It's way bigger, and it's hard to grasp because it's pretty bare right now. But it's going to be a very large commercial parcel.
You have a location.
Yeah, that's
Obviously, you don't know what's going to go where. So, the two signs that are kind of causing the hiccup are the tall ones. Do you have any? Do you have those marked on there again
Yeah.
that you can show us?
So let's see, where's the cursor? Okay, this says 60, but it's going to be 53, and it would be about here. This is where we've determined is the best view coming from the south going north.
Okay.
And then the other one would be at this end, and again, that would be 53 also. There's kind of a high point right here that starts to block off this lower area. If you ever take a drive southbound and northbound along that road, you'll see the land and the visibility really does vary quite a bit. And for context, both of those signs are 15 feet shorter than the hotel, for example. And they're all very much shorter than the power poles that are already along there. So it won't be the first thing there, for example. There's power poles up and down this entire stretch. There's the power poles on both sides of Sun River Parkway are 85 feet tall, and these are 50-foot signs, 53-foot signs.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And just so,
Go ahead, Jim.
just so I understand correctly, Paula, with the current sign ordinance, if this wasn't a master sign plan, and somebody came in and bought a lot and built, what's the requirement for them to have a 50-foot sign?
Well, they have to be within 1,500 feet of the entrance or exit of the freeway.
Which do we know how?
I don't know what the bubble would be
Scott, do you
for
know
it,
that?
but I think he mentioned 2,000
The gore
feet
is
along
right
the-
about here, so it covers this entire stretch. And the off-ramp itself, I think, starts way back here. It starts right about at Nighthawk.
It's a long off-ramp.
So,
It
yeah.
is.
So in other words, all those yellow signs could technically be, if they were
You could have,
separated off, could be 50-foot signs.
Yeah, no, this could be horrible.
We do have some other, regulations in there, but you could have a number of them through there.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions or discussion? It is as you drive up the I-15 corridor a little bit, and you see what has recently been put up at Washington City's exit 13. You see a rather large, I don't know how tall it is, but it's a very large sign. You look at whatever exit it is, the Hurricane exit, very large signs there that is actually, I believe, in Washington as well by the Harley-Davidson and the Coral Canyon area. I think, as you look at this, which is an interesting parcel and project because it's freeway commercial. This is along I-15. What's nice is that, frankly, we're dealing with these kinds of signs as opposed to billboards, which I like billboards too, Ray. But I think we have to, it's good to place them appropriately. And so I think while some of the residents may be concerned with these signs, if you were living in some other places, you might not be so fortunate, and you might have a much, much larger sign because of the freeway adjacency. So I actually quite like the design, and I think I would prefer having the slight difference in character, the design, the slopeward up, as opposed to just a straight sign. They could meet the 50-foot exactly, but I kind of like it the way it's proposed. It's a little different. It's a little bit more pleasing to the eye, to me. But beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Anyway, any other questions, comments, or if you're ready for a motion, we can proceed. However you'd like to do it.
I guess that's because I'm hearing the residents' concerns, and I hear them, and I kind of agree a little bit. But then as I think about this, and we're talking about this master sign plan, the whole purpose why we do this is if we can get this whole project to have some uniformity, I just think we'll have a better result in my mind. In other words, I hate to see us punt on third down and get something we didn't want. So, I don't know. And being that they're on each end of the project, it makes a lot of sense. I just hate to see us on the reverse of this discourage developers from coming in for a master sign plan that gives us a little bit more of uniformity and actually reduces the number of signs because they feel like they can get more by splitting it up. I mean, I hope we can encourage this. Sometimes that means we got to give a little bit. I know we set precedent and all that, but I don't know. It just feels like even though I'd like to acknowledge those concerns of the residents, that we ought to take a win when we got to win and try to make something that can be really different and uniform and it'll look really nice.
It's one of the reasons we like PDs,
Right.
generally speaking, is we get to look at the designs, the colors, the materials, the elevations, and that's what we get to do as part of that here with the signage master sign plan.
Mayor, when I asked that question of what's on the east side of the freeway, although this is all on the west side, because when you live in Sun River, you're going to look at, it's the lighting. That whole area is going to be illuminated at one point in time. And this seems to be a pretty moderate response to that. But when you have that driving golf course and other type of commercial activities just on the other side of the freeway, but it's almost going to look like one big area that's going to be lighted, and to be able to restrict everything on the west side with the illumination factor, it seems like this is pretty moderate, really, with the type of signs and the locations. I'm with Jimmy as far as being concerned about one of the gentlemen mentioned that we shouldn't be concerned with the economic aspects of this. But I don't think we want to be able to in a position to where we're making it difficult or an obstacle to those that want to develop businesses. It is an issue to us. If we don't have the sales tax revenues, we're not as able to provide for police and fire and parks and those other amenities that are important to us. So it is a dilemma, but I think we have to consider all of those things and try to come down on what's in the best side of the city as a whole, not necessarily just for this segment around Sun River. So that is the question for me.
One of the other things I hear from business owners is, you know, hey, why does so-and-so over here have this sign and I have to have this sign? And I understand the importance of signs, and I love the idea of being able to advertise your business. One of the things that these sign ordinances do is it creates that level playing field, because we know what the signs are they're going to be in this entire project, which is a big project when you think about it. And so that's the other thing behind these master sign plans, is that we won't have to hear that, because everybody knows going in what they're dealing with. Nobody has an advantage over anybody else because we know what the signs are, and I'm not going to build a bigger, better, taller sign at 80 feet so that everybody knows where my place is. So I kind of like that. I really do, I have to say.
And I think, Jimmy, we're going to see a little later in the agenda, you know, again, across the freeway, Desert Color, you know, we're going to see a similar master signage plan. And I think it really looks good to have a common theme, as you're just saying.
Wouldn't it have been nice if all the commercial on this side would have been already done before
Yep.
the residential? Like over there, it's going to, you know, everybody's going to know what's going on before they ever move in.
Yeah.
So that's the downside here, is that here we put this beautiful Sun River on the first exit in Utah, and with the realization that someday this was going to happen. Just nobody foresaw how big it was going to happen, but it's always been there as something that was going to happen, and I've heard for years how this was going to happen, and we were heading for some confrontation because nobody had the vision to see this was what was going to happen. But it is a major exit.
Well, and we want commercial there.
Yeah,
I mean, it was always planned for commercial to be there, so
right. That's my point.
there are going to be signs.
So what's the other difference between the recommendation, the staff recommendation, and the planning commission recommendation, besides the
53.
So the planning commission recommend 50-foot signs, 53-foot signs,
They recommended one 50-foot sign,
not 53.
not 53.
So the request is 253 and
What else did Planning Commission?
2 30-foot or 2 15-foot?
Planning Commission recommended two 15-foot opposed to the 30-foot that was requested by the applicant.
1 30-foot was requested?
Two
30
30 feet at these locations here.
Show me those again, sorry.
Right here and right here. That's correct. Those are your two locations.
So, for example, Dinosaur Crossing, those are 28, 30-foot signs. Just for
With the
comparison.
anticipation there's going to be multiple businesses in those two locations, so you have those signs that come down.
At their entrances.
And is that what it's, you know, one of the people commenting talked about that. Is that the likely result, is you're going to have multiple tenants in this area as opposed to a big box store?
It's really hard to say at this point. We just don't have anything under contract, and you have to be ready for all contingencies. But again, just that it's so much acreage, there's going to be a lot of tenants. There probably won't be. There'll be more tenants than we have room on the pylon signs for example. So the smaller ones will be on the monument signs.
Gotcha. Major tenants get the
Right.
space, okay.
Can I ask Paula a question? Paula, when you mentioned that if they go other than lot by lot, if it wasn't such a big project, we'd end up with a lot more signage than what we're being presented here tonight.
You would have a sign on every lot,
We would have.
at every
So
business.
this speaks to
It
the-
would mostly be monument signs that were 10-foot high to 15-foot high, depending on the height of the buildings.
So we'd actually have fewer signs by going on a broader base like this and trying to design it than if we really looked at it.
You would.
And so that would be some satisfaction, I would think.
I think fewer, you probably would have, let's put it this way, more signs, more 50-foot signs.
Right.
You might have, you'd probably have more 10 to 15-foot signs. You might not have two 30-foot signs, but
Yeah.
most likely. And that is one of the benefits of a single developer, developing this much acreage.
And you would probably have lights on every one of those 10 to 15-foot signs as well, whether they're uplit or backlit or
And
something.
some of it is you look at, River Road a little bit or Bluff Street, where not all of the developments were done at the same time, and we probably would do things differently today. I think we'd do it more like this.
Right. Yeah.
Does anyone?
Okay, so just to be clear, I can make it any
Crystal
more confusing.
clear.
The proposal that's before us is not for the two 53-foot signs.
It is.
It is.
The
So-
request has stayed the same.
Okay, so the request has stayed the same regardless of what.
Planning Commission has made
Okay,
a
all right.
recommendation.
So the request is as recommended by staff. Yes?
Staff recommends the two at 53 feet.
Okay.
And the 230
And,
and everything else that's been.
right, and the 28 foot for the terrible herbs.
So essentially, the staff agrees with or recommends what has been requested by the applicant.
We just were opposed the initial 60 feet.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can I ask John a question?
Ye-
John, is this, I know that you are working hard and you worked hard on the lighting ordinance and the lighting on signage and so forth. This type of a project, does this kind of comport to what the overall vision we had of how to control some of the lighting issues that constantly come before us and how to control them by having something more in line with this type of a plan, with considering the lighting?
I think when we look at the overall project, we can address the lighting at that time and ensure that it's in line with the discussions that we've had in regards to the lighting. It's something we can look at and make sure. I'm not sure what kind of lighting you anticipate having on the signs. So usually the backlighting is subtle. The backlighting is subtle. We get concerned with the huge cabinets and the lights or the uplighting
Right.
that you see sometimes. But the backlighting is usually fairly minimal.
Just the letters themselves, I'm told, is the design.
And so where they have the halo behind the signs or the letters.
Thank you.
So,
Jimmy?
so some of these concerns I see, but I guess I really feel, I want to go ahead and make a motion, Mayor. I really feel like this is what we want. This is a win, and we want to promote this type of sign plan to create this a little more uniformity. And really, I think this is going to cut down on the number of signs. Sorry, Ray. But they're high quality signs. It's not always quantity, it's quality, right? So I will go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and approve the master sign ordinance, amend the PDC to approve the master sign ordinance as approved by staff, recommended by staff.
Second.
I have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Joe. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone involved.
Good discussion, Mayor. I think that
Yeah.
looking to the future and looking really to.
Yeah. Yes, sir? Word 4. Yeah.
Force table.
Will you just restate number 4, the issue with number 4?
Correct. Just for the benefit of those who may have joined us late, item number 4 has been removed from our agenda at the request of the applicant. We did notice a public hearing for that, so we realize we may have some people in attendance for that. If and when that item comes back to the council, that public notice will be redone and rescheduled, so public comment would be taken at that time.
Thank you.
So then we jump to item number 5, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance changing the zone from R110, which is single-family residential, to PDC, which is Plan Development Commercial, and also per Section 10.8.4 of the Plan Development section of the code to review the written text, and per Section 10.8.5 to review the commercial center's design, site plan, elevations, landscaping, and parking for a project called RGM Canyon View. And it's on 3.02 acres. It's at the southwest corner of Dixie Drive and Canyon View Drive Extended. This just shows the ownership for reference. Here's Dixie Drive. Here's Canyon View. And a good aerial photo of the area that's right in here. And the general plan, you probably recall from the recent past, has a commercial that's been approved and designated to be here. And then the project will fall right within that area. The existing zoning, as I read, is R110. So I have another slide after this one, but this kind of gives you a good overview of the site plan in its entirety submitted. This shows, again, the corner of Canyon View Drive, Dixie Drive, and it's basically 2 phases. The first phase is where I'm circling with the pointer here to have a C-store with an attached restaurant and then a canopy for gas, and then a future phase here for some other commercial buildings. And then I've enlarged it here where you can see it a little bit better. So again, we'll be talking about this area, again at Canyon View Drive and Dixie Drive. An entrance in and out here on Canyon View, and I believe John was at a full access, and Wes here on Dixie Drive, full access. This gives you a little bit better view. You can see the red, the building, and their phase 1 that's proposed, and the canopy would be here, and then the green simulates all of the landscape areas that are proposed. This shows two-dimensional building that would be there, and you can see the variation, the design, the cultured stone, stucco, and canopies. And then this is the rear elevation. It also has some treatment so that's not just all one solid wall. You've got the breakup with the wainscot of the stone on the bottom. And then the sides. And typical gas station canopy. And then this is the example that was submitted. This is a breakdown of the land use. I won't spend too much time on this. It's just showing the convenience store in phase 1, about 4,600 square feet. And in phase 1, the first phase again would be about 2,600 square feet. And then there'd be future phases that would come, but they would have to return. Part of this project is proposed commercial uses. Developers proposing to utilize the north portion of Lot 2 for phase 1. Again, to do a convenience market with the gas pumps, and you can pretty much see what's there. Then they're proposing the following, and you'll have to go over these use lists: liquor store, microbrewery, amusement centers. A lot of these have been pulled out of the C2 or C3 zone, and you can see that health club, entertainment indoors, animal boarding for units, automobile part sales, rentals, bank, professional business offices, and then under food it could be delicatessen, bakery, ice cream, restaurant. And then it continues on. I won't read all of these, but the list is there for you. Let me flip to the staff report itself. I'm looking at, looking at page 1. And again, this request right now is for the convenience store, the restaurant, for the design of the center, the elevations, the landscaping, the parking, and the uses. On the bottom of the first page, they have to turn in the use list and the development per the development standards, address items A through M. The land coverage by all buildings, they can't go over 50%. We'll make sure that if this is approved, they don't do that. The setbacks look like they will meet and exceed the city's requirements. Parking requirements, they have to have a minimum of 45 spaces, and then they're proposing 45, so they're right at design. But that does take into consideration a restaurant, which is good, so that it's not an issue of business license coming up later, not being able to support that. Signs and advertising, basically, you heard a lot about signage before this item. They'll have to meet Title IX, Chapter 13, which is a sign ordinance. Heights, no building shall be erected higher than 35 unless it's part of the zone change, but this is a single story and it's well underneath that. And they're not requesting height. And I'll try to quickly go through these others. We'll look at it as commercial. They'll have to have a solid 6-foot wall to separate residential zone. And they'll have to meet landscaping requirements. They can't have any outside storage. They understand that. And I'm jumping quickly to the next page. I've already read a little bit about how they'll have to protect residential property. And there would be height limit close to residential property and have to stagger it for height, but looking at what they're proposing, that does not come into play. So, bottom of the page, Planning Commission does recommend approval of the layout, the design as presented. The colors and materials, they supported that. There was quite a bit of discussion, if I can go back here, with what's called Quarry Road coming in here. This project is coming in at the corner, but they wanted to make sure that it was understood that there would be access by other property owner to have access to that property. And I'm looking at item number 4 under Planning Commission recommending approval. It says quarry access. The existing quarry shall have full access provided and maintained. You might want to consider a condition that they provide a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between the property owners for street configuration of public streets, meaning that because the applicant has property here, how would they have street design on this side and then also off Dixie Drive? That would be something that would be looked at with staff, and then the legal department would have to review and make sure that that's satisfactory. We didn't want to miss that. Number 5, lighting is always an issue. Canopy lighting. The fuel canopy shall be recessed with a maximum of 25 foot candles. Next page, 6, site lighting. They'll have to give a photometric plan, which is pretty standard. 7, phase 1. This is only for phase 1 if you approve it. The C-store, fuel canopy, and restaurant. Uses. The uses as edited by the Planning Commission and City Council shall apply to both phase 1 and phase 2. So I thought I had it in a report. I'm hoping I do. They had gone through and edited quite a bit that use list. What was that, Joe?
We've got it.
Oh, good. Phew. I got worried there for a minute. Okay. So you can see on, my clip is preventing me from seeing the page, but you can see where we've marked out, and there's been quite a bit of extensive editing. When the Planning Commission had looked at it, they wanted all of the headings that were carryover from the C2 and C3 zones to be removed. They scratched liquor store, they scratched animal services, including the following as a title. They scratched animal shelter, they scratched tire sales, and I think you get the gist. I don't know if you want me to read those, but you can see all of the proposed changes that they made. And I should have put that on the slide. That would have been more helpful, but it is in your packet.
Yeah.
And again, if necessary, I can go through them, but they are available to you.
We have.
I think we're good.
So I think that concludes staff's comments. Let me just zoom through here and make sure I didn't miss anything else. That concludes staff's comments.
Ray, I have a question, and I didn't quite understand it, the planning commission either. The phase that we're looking at is the convenience store, yeah, right there.
Which is all of this darker area, and then
Yeah.
you see the dash line, which
Okay,
is
so then the other part of that comes back to us?
that was
Those other buildings, or what? How does that?
that was our understanding, that tonight you're only looking at approving, you're approving this area, this building, layout, parking, and then a key factor to it is the uses that would cover both areas here. Then in the future, they'll come back with a zone change amendment and show you what buildings they want to do.
They'd have to show us the actual elevations, materials, colors.
Yeah.
For each one, if they came in separately? Is that fair?
That's accurate. We kind of think they're going to come in together, but.
Yeah.
But it's
we
all
don't know
part of the
that.
same PD.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that condition that you specified here on public road, that would still be included? Need to be included?
It still
even
needs,
in this
we think
phase?
it needs to be included. We want to
In
make sure
this
that
phase.
that's covered. And I wrote that before I was sitting here, before I came up, but we should have had that as a recommended condition for you.
Any other questions for Ray, council? Okay.
Okay.
Is the applicant here? Oh, would you like to say anything regarding the project? Haven't seen you for a while. You better introduce yourself.
Rob Reed with Rosenberg Associates, representing the applicant.
Thank you.
To just confirm Councilman Bowcut's question about the procedure we intend to follow is we're coming in for a PD zone change right now for the site and for the C-store, and with approving uses over the entire 3 acres. But when it comes time to go vertical on a building in phase 2, we will come back with an amended PD zone at that time.
But the uses would still carry over?
The use would still carry over, unless there was some reason something came up that was not on the list, then that would have to be part of that zone change
That's right.
amendment.
Anything else? Any questions for the applicant's representative? Okay.
I did have one question.
Okay,
Victoria
yes.
had made a note about the future buildings must share the Dixie Drive access. Are they not sharing both accesses, or is there an issue with that?
No, there's no issue with that. I think that there was some discussion on whether or not it would be a full access on Dixie Drive. And it's been determined, working with staff, that it will be a full access.
So I'm assuming with PD, it's all common area and they'll all have access and parking
Yes.
shared? Okay.
Thank you, Paula. Good clarification. Okay, then I will open the public hearing for anyone who may have come to provide input or ask questions on item 5 on our agenda today.
Starting to get- I can see- I can hear my voice.
My name is Dick Hendry. I'm the president of the Olive Grove Homeowners Association, which is east, just across this Dixie Drive from the proposed change. And while we believe that the property owners have a right to develop their properties, we also believe that they, along with the city, have the responsibility to consider the impact of their development on those around them. Canyon View Drive is a very busy street already, since it is a main road that services a number of single-family homes, in addition to the expanding Pelican Hills community across the street to the north of proposed development, Sports Village, Las Palmas condos, North and South cottages, Green Valley Spa, and an ever-expanding timeshare community. Dixie Drive was a busy street before the off-ramp off of I-15 and has become a major road serving the west sector of St. George. And while the posted speed limit along Dixie Drive is 40 miles an hour, there are very few drivers who observe this, and those who do drive the speed limit are passed by those going much faster. The city not long ago did some extensive landscaping at Cottonwood Cove Park, just to the south of Olive Grove, which has grown to the point that exiting from Olive Grove to the south has caused a blind spot because of the growth of the vegetation and a curve in Dixie Drive, and is at times very dangerous. There is very little merge lane for the cars exiting Olive Grove to the south, and this is a left turn lane for Canyon View Drive in the proposed development. If you're waiting for a serious accident to occur, it wouldn't take long. Also, entering Olive Grove from the north to the north at the north entrance has become dangerous because of the median planning done along Dixie Drive, which looks nice, but has grown to the point that it makes visibility difficult for those looking south, combined with the speed of the cars. Now, just four blocks to the north of the proposed development, at the corner of Dixie Drive and Valley View, is a Sinclair gas station convenience store with a Subway shop, sandwich shop, plus 3 eating establishments and other retail services. A few blocks to the south, there are 4 commercial developments with vacant commercial space, one of which is called the Commons. They, the Commons, finally, after a number of years, are renting out vacant space, but there are still a number of spaces available. And about a half a mile to the south of the proposed development is a Maverick gas station convenience store. Commercial development, including another gas station convenience store, is really not needed at this location. Residents of Olive Grove strongly object to the proposed zoning changes for the following reasons. Increased traffic at Dixie Drive, Canyon View Drive, making an already dangerous situation much worse. There is no need for another gas station convenience store so close to 2 existing such businesses. Traffic and the difficulty of exiting onto Dixie Drive would increase, would have a serious impact on property values. If the city approves this zone change, it should be mandatory that a traffic light at this location be installed. Otherwise, egress from Olive Grove and other homes and communities will be very dangerous and next to impossible.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
No, thank you. Other comments?
Good evening. My name is Craig Kramer. I am a resident of Olive Grove, and I fully support what our HOA president has just told you. My home is directly across the street from this proposed C-store. So I guess I'm probably more impacted than some of the other residents who won't have to look at it every day outside their window. I have some questions that came up listening to the previous thing about signage. Will this gas station, nothing's been mentioned other than just a general following the rules. Is it going to have one of these large signs up there that's lit up with all the price numbers on it and everything that's on 24 hours a day? Anybody answer that question?
It would have signage.
Yes. So,
You know, they would have to get a sign permit and submit that with the elevations, colors, lighting.
because none of that was in the information that we received. That's why I'm asking.
There's a little difference because they're not applying for a master sign.
Right. No, I
plan.
understand that, but yes.
So they would just follow the current code, which means they'd be limited to the 10 or the 15-foot monument sign, depending on the height of their building.
So it won't be one of these 30-foot high signs with the numbers that change electronically and all that that's lit up
Well,
24 hours a day?
it wouldn't be a 50-foot sign. It
Well,
wouldn't be
no,
a
I said
30-foot
30
sign.
foot, like the Mavericks have. They all have these signs out in the front of the Mavericks with their prices on them. They're not 15 foot, they're
The ones
30
you're,
foot.
yeah, the ones you're talking about, no, because they wouldn't comply with the sign ordinance.
Which wouldn't comply, the ones that the
The-
Mavericks have or this particular?
The
project?
Mavericks, like for example on Bluff Street,
yeah.
it's different because of where it is.
Okay.
It's close to the freeway and on a major commercial street,
Okay.
so it's limited as to how tall it can be.
That brings up the other concern I have. Driving around town and looking at all the various convenience stores, the majority of them are located where all the opposing corners are commercial zoned. You know, you have a gas station on one corner and a store on the other corner or something else. Here you're putting a convenience store where the other three corners is residential occupancy, which seems kind of backwards to me. I don't, it seems like that's out of place. If there are residences around the other convenience stores, there's usually a buffer between the convenience store and the residence by other smaller businesses that I've seen, or the residences are behind the convenience store, not directly across the street from it, where you have to look at this thing every day.
There are
I am
actually
opposed to it.
lots of examples of both, actually.
Well, the only one I could find was down on River Road, South River Road, where there's a Chevron station down there. And I don't know which came first, the convenience store or the houses there, but that's the one I could find. The one at Green Valley, that, on Dixie there and Valley View, that's been there for ages also. And across the street from it, though, is commercial building. On the west side, there's a huge high bank. There's no houses directly across the street from it. So
It's kind of a neighborhood commercial as opposed to like
Right.
a big
Right.
box grocery store or something.
which brings up another thing, is the plan, I know you changed the general plan in February to make that little strip along Dixie Drive commercial resident, occupancy, and now we're just fine tuning it tonight. Is the plan to continue that commercial strip all the way down Dixie Drive on the west side, past Cottonwood Cove Park and on down to where the existing commercial center is?
Ray, can you speak to that? Show that.
I'm trying to find a general plan here real quick.
The map over there just shows that one.
So
There you go.
we're looking at this corner right now, and the general plan only shows commercial to that point.
No, there was a general plan amendment done probably 2 months ago. This isn't updated. That does show a commercial extending down here. Yep.
And when you look at, again, the road, I mean, Dixie Drive today isn't what Dixie Drive was 20 years ago.
No, or 10 years ago when
Yeah.
I moved there.
Yeah, and it's only going to get busier. In all honesty,
Yes.
I wouldn't want to pretend otherwise. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if someday we're widening Dixie Drive. It just depends on what happens with Santa Clara, Ivans. That is a major collector road, major
Right.
arterial, and so it's quite likely. And really, I don't see it ever going down in terms of busyness. It's going to go up, and you're right. Probably at some point, in fact, I think I was going to ask staff, we probably either need to do a traffic study or look at what it would take to justify a traffic signal at this location. We're probably going to need that at some point, almost no matter what is here.
Right.
But one of the things I kind of think about, both to you and others in the council, is, if this is zoned, like you say, the general plan's been changed, but if this is zoned R110, who would want to build a R110 there now? I'm not thinking anyone. And again, I realize you're there across the street,
Right.
but knowing what you know now, you might not buy across the street and build R110. So I think we've got to be thinking what makes the most sense for the future. And we've got to do what we can to protect you and make you be able to get out onto Dixie Drive, of course.
Right. It is becoming very hazardous.
Yeah.
And as Dick Henry said, the trees that the city has planted in these medians, I don't know whose idea that was, but it makes seeing oncoming traffic almost impossible. When we're trying to come out of there and turn left to go south, you can't see traffic coming from the south because of that curve. You can maybe see 100 yards, if that. Looking north, you might be able to see traffic flickering between the trees, but you can't tell which lane it's in. Is it in the inside lane or the outside lane? So when you pull out there, you don't know what you're going to get till you're right there. And there's no center median going south to pull into for a safety zone. All you got's a left turn slot there, and invariably you pull out there in that left turn slot and somebody wants to pull in there the other direction.
Well,
It's
short
very
term,
dangerous.
we can certainly look at that, and we have further down, further north, further north.
Yeah.
Just past the Green Valley Market, we're going to shorten the planting strip.
Yeah.
So we can certainly look at that.
And I know this is off topic, but we have the same situation turning off of Dixie Drive to go over to the Maverick on Hilton Drive. You're at that light and you cannot see the oncoming traffic from the freeway. You've got this another median with nothing but trees there. And you have to kind of stick your nose out there to see if anybody's in that inside lane before you make a left turn. Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I see
so
where you're saying.
If you're going to be looking into that, this is another area to look at.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Any other comments from the public?